Howdy everyone, this is Shadowroo, and I am your coach for the Sarasota Scissors, and today I have for you my draft analysis for the Woods Draft League Season number 5. Now, this is actually the second time I've recorded this video. Didn't realize the first time my aspect ratio was off, so forgive me if I sound a little bit frustrated, but anyway, enough about that. Uh, for this particular league, we decided to run it in the Galar Dex Draft format, uh, with a few rule exceptions. So no Dynamaxing. We figured it was too meta breaking, too unfun. Uh, so mostly OU rules, but we have allowed certain hidden abilities like Dracozolt, some of the starters. We've allowed some of those unreleased hidden abilities to be, allowed because it makes some Pokemon, to be honest, a lot better. And we figured it would just add to the fun. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. So, I was seat number 2 for this draft, meaning that I had access to basically anything I wanted. Uh, and last season, I felt like I was too railroaded in my draft. I figured everything was too forced into one role, so it's kind of easy to build for, that sort of thing. So this season, I decided to do a complete 180 and just go for straight variety. And to do that, I picked probably the most versatile Pokemon in the game. I picked Mew, also known as Progeny. I do name all of my Pokemon. I can assure you I'm totally skilled at it, and my names totally aren't cringe. But anyway, with Mew, you see immediately right off the bat the variety that it can have just with its stats. You can run so many different spreads with Mew. It's kind of hard to find something that it's not good at. This is even better now that it got Roost thanks to Pokemon Home, along with every other TM and Move Tutor game from previous games. So it got a nice little, return to form in that regard. So a bulkier Mew set is now easier to do than it was pre-home, where you were basically railroaded into Calm Mind or Nasty Plot or whatever. Mew is also a really good rock setter and a really good defogger. My team has two defoggers on it. A lot of drafts we're only able to get one, if that. Um, but uh, they're kind of in high demand this season, and even though my defoggers are on Pokemon that may not want to always be defogging, having some decent defoggers that, you know, can at least do the role is better than having none. So we take those. Anyway, all around, Fetus Cat is very, very, versatile and can fit into a number of different roles. So my next pick, where I was pick order number 15, the snake format of the draft, they worked all the way down to the bottom of the list, and the person that went last would then go first, meaning that I was close to last for round 2. Um, there was still a decent amount of power left at that point, and I've always wanted to try Incineroar in a draft format. I love this Pokemon. So I decided to go for it. Uh, this Pokemon covers the Ghost and maybe bulky Steel types that Mew might struggle with. Gets some good coverage for Grass types, which my later draft might struggle a little bit with. And it's neutral on Fairy, so for a Dark type to be neutral on Fairy, that's pretty good. Um, Obviously, it's a starter, so its stats are pretty nicely distributed overall, can do a number of different things with it. Uh, because of its hidden ability Intimidate and its access to Will-O-Wisp, it makes for a pretty good defensive tank. And thanks to the introduction of heavy-duty boots, it's even better at that job. So now it can swap in and out a lot more, get more Intimidates off without worrying too much about hazards. It also gets access to Parting Shot, which I didn't realize is when I was drafting it. I realized it after the fact. So turns out I have 3 Parting Shot users on my team. So that should be something. Um, this Pokemon got access to Close Combat in this generation, and I think its previous best fighting stab was Superpower, or not stab, it's not a fighting type, but its previous best fighting coverage was Superpower, and Superpower is not super reliable. You can't spam it. Your attack just gets too bad, and you can't, kill things as often. So Close Combat, all in all, better move. Um, Gets some pretty decent setup as well. Gets access to Bulk Up, Swords Dance. Even Nasty Plot, if I felt like it. So can basically fit a number of different roles that my team might use. Obviously, the biggest drawback being that it's slow, so running it as a sweeper could be a bit of a challenge, but I like challenges. Uh, and then finally, and this may not be super important, but I think it could be, especially given this meta. Um, it's got a really strong stab knockoff, and I think in this generation, items are more important than ever with things like heavy duty boots, room service, just minor tech items, things that you'd run because they fit a specific purpose, and without them, things get a lot harder. So I think having knockoff is just really, really good. I think knockoff is an insane move, and having a good Pokemon with good stab knockoff is insane. Moving forward, I decided to go for one of my favorite Draft League Pokemon. Some people kind of tend to not agree with this Pokemon being drafted and think it's not super great. Shout out to Joe. But I don't know. I love this Pokemon, and I really want it. I really want to try and get it to do something this season. So, introducing Chimera the Silvally. As you can see, it's basically a mini Arceus between Arceus system and its typings, or sorry, stats being the same across the board. Uh, its main, signature move, multi-attack, actually got buffed this generation. Went from 90 base power to 120, and to me, what that means is that for certain typings like Silvally Fighting, you usually wouldn't run them because it didn't have good special stab. So basically, you wouldn't want to run multi-attack because it just wouldn't do enough unless you invested in it. But all the coverage moves needed to be invested in too, so things just got really hairy, complicated, just not all around easy to do. But with the buffed multi-attack, you can kind of run those typings now and invest only a little bit to have a base 120 stab move do a shit ton of damage. Shit ton is relative, of course. This thing is base 95 attack, but I'm gonna go with that narrative for now. Um, so I think certain typings now are gonna want to be run mixed as opposed to special, which is better for mixing it up. Gets access to Parting Shot, of course, and thanks to Pokemon Home, it gets Defog again, making it a pretty decent bulky pivot overall. So I think this Pokemon, it's the second defogger on my team, and like I said earlier, it may not always want to be defogging, but it could be worse. Like I said, it gets fantastic coverage between ice, electric, fire, water, and basically most of the common offensive typings. It gets access to usually on the special side, which makes me run a mixed spread because I'm not going to run Ice Fang over Ice Beam most of the time. But sorry, spoilers. But either way, I think this Pokemon can do a lot more than it even could in Gen 7, and the only change was that multi-attack got buffed, so I think that's just interesting to think about. And hell, if I wanted to, this Pokemon gets a Swords Dance, so it's probably even a better sweeper than Incineroar. So definitely some options. You can see where I'm going when I say I got some variety this season. Uh, After this, I figured, well, I need to bolster my defensive core just a little bit. I need something to help Incineroar out. I need something to help Mew out if it can, and just something on the special side since most of my bulk is physical as of right now. So I went with Jellicent. If you don't understand why I named it Pringles, use your eyeballs. I think I think it'll come to you eventually. But this Pokemon has obviously 3 immunities between its typing and its ability Water Absorb. So you can swap in on 3 relatively common uh, offensive typings. I think in general that's something you want to have. Um, but as for utility, it gets a number of things to potentially mess with someone's team. Scald, Will-O-Wisp, Toxic, Taunt, Trick Room, Destiny Bond, you name it. I don't think it's a great debond user, but any debond user could be, decent in the right circumstances. And it gets another new toy this generation. It gets Strength Sap. So it now can do even better with combating setup, because it could be setup fodder. You could argue that this Pokemon could get set up on and gradually whittled down because you're relying on a burn, and even if you get the burn, they can still keep setting up and you can't do much about it. Now it gets Strength Sap, so you're healing while also taking them down a notch. So between that, it's good Water Ghost typing. It's a good water type, of course, and you always want a good water type. I think in a draft, water's insane as far as typings go, and it's really decent bulk all around. I think this Pokemon could definitely see some use. Uh, Excuse me, that was awful. But for the the next part of my draft, which is my final part to my main defensive core, um, I was originally going to draft this alongside Pelipper to do like a bit of a rain package because I saw that last season among some of the higher ranked players. Shout out to Al, but it really does, I think, work. And running it as a package as opposed to your whole draft means that, well, you can kind of slot it in whenever you need it. But someone sniped Pelipper away from me, so it feels bad. Either way, though, I think Sandaconda, or as I've taken to calling him Buns because he does not want any of it, um, I think that he can still see some fair use and do some decent things. He's a really good, obviously, defensive tank with 125 defense and access to coil. So it's basically Arbok, but with a slightly better defensive typing and a way better offensive typing. Um, Gets access to Glare, so you can paralyze some ground types. After all, because it's not an electric type move, could come in handy. Uh, Also access to Stealth Rock, so it's another rock user. Didn't have any last season. I think I have 5 now, so watch out. Um, this Pokemon obviously has the electric immunity, which is nice with Jellicent. Obviously covers rock types for Incineroar. Uh, Covers steel types for basically anything because steel is obviously a really good typing that was in high demand for this draft. More on that later. And one niche option that this thing has is its ability Sand Spit. So if you hit it with a move, I believe it's any move, but it could just be physical moves. I have to check on that. It could set sand. So it's basically a budget Hippowdon at that point. My team isn't exactly built for sand, but I also had that emphasis on variety that I've been talking about. So there's a possibility that it could work out at some point. We will see. Um, After this, I was looking at some of the draft picks that were left, particularly some of the higher point stuff, since I had been going a bit low point. I'm like, is there anything big that I could use to just put another threat in my board? And I looked, and the only one left was Toxtricity, which I did pick up. And if you don't understand this name, you are actually dead to me. But this Pokemon here, it's not super overwhelming. 114 special attack, 98 attack, 75 speed. It's not super fast, and it hits alright, but not super hard, and its coverage isn't super great. But it makes up for that with its ability Punk Rock, meaning that its signature move, among other things like Boom Burst, are powered up, and it takes less damage from other sound-based moves. So, I mean, I don't see sound-based moves being super meta, but we'll see. It could be relevant. Between those and its really decent offensive typing, covers fairy types, covers water types, covers flying, uh, that sort of thing. This Pokemon could definitely be decent as like a Scarf user, or if I ran Shift Gear, I could run Shift Gear with some physical moves, maybe run Physical Toxtricity, or not even Physical, just get the speed boost because its Shift Gear is just better agility. Um, this Pokemon also is probably one of the better Scarf users on my team because my draft isn't that fast. Decided to go bulky instead, but we'll see. I could probably slap a Scarf on a few other things, but Toxtricity would probably be the general, Scarf user. It's probably the best suited for it. I keep wanting to say Toxicity, which would have been a much better sounding name, would have rolled off the tongue better, but what do I know? I'm not Game Freak. Shrug. Um, but yeah, overall, I don't think this Pokemon is super overwhelming. I'm surprised it was priced as high as it was, to be honest. But I don't know. I'm excited to use it. Gives me some coverage that I could use. We'll go with it. Um, so after this, I was looking down the list and I realized I really need a Steel type, but I also really don't need another ground weakness. So I was really not sure how to take that direction, and I finally settled on Bronzong, also known as Bing Bong. Not no relation to the pink elephant creature from Inside Out, but if there was a pink elephant Pokemon, you know that's what that name would be because I do like that reference. But this Pokemon is a big steel bell. It goes Bing Bong. Enough said. Um, so this was probably the best steel type left in the roster by this point. Uh, it's pretty bulky on both ends of the spectrum. Gets both access to screens as well to bolster that even more. It's another rock setter, because Lord knows I needed more of those. Gets access to Toxic, Trick Room, even Hypnosis. and I realize I'm giving away a lot of information about various Pokemon in my draft, but I've come to the conclusion that that information's public anyway, and if I lose because someone didn't know Bronzong could set up like Trick Room, but then after me saying it was able to prep for it, more power to you. I'm not going to lose sleep over it. But anyway, this Pokemon is also obviously a ground immunity to anything that's basically non-Excadrill. It's even a pseudo fire resist with heat proof if I need it to be. It gets access to Body Press this generation, which actually is, in my opinion, is what caused it to move up to UU, because it was RU in Gen 7, partially because it couldn't handle opposing steel types very well without Hidden Power Fire, which generally you didn't have the slot for. With Body Press, if you're investing in defense, it's gonna hit really, really hard. I think Body Press is exactly what this Pokemon needed. Something like good coverage, but didn't require it to invest in its 89 attack. Uh, it even gets access to Calm Mind. So if you swap in on, say, a Grass type, which this thing kind of checks, not exactly counters, but it can. Most Grass types can't touch it without Sunny Day Weather Ball, which is going to be obvious if they're running. It can set up on them with Calm Mind. So this Pokemon, I think, is just pretty versatile, and it fills out a niche in my team that was really, really difficult to fill out, so I'm glad I got this Pokemon. I'm also glad I got the next Pokemon, which is misnumbered, and that messes up the rest of this PowerPoint, but whatever. Um, Pangoro here, or Cujo, was actually named a different thing last gen, but I got tired of that name. Um, it was probably one of the best performing Pokemon in my draft. I actually picked it up, I think, week 2 or 3, and this Pokemon has been awesome since. I think I brought it every single week, and it always was impactful. This Pokemon is a great choice band user. You can run Assault Vest or Bulk Up, but Band is generally one of the better sets, in my opinion. And it all works because Iron Fist Drain Punch recovers insane amounts of HP. And between that and Parting Shot, yeah, this is my third Parting Shot user, it really does, I think, set itself up as a good offensive pivot. You come in, you can click Parting Shot on something to predict a switch. If you're whittled down towards the end of the game and you get lucky, you can nail a Drain Punch. It also gets good coverage between Bullet Punch and like the elemental fire, water, or fire, electric, ice punches. It actually, has them fists. It even gets Bold Breaker. So if you're up against a Rotom or a Mimikyu, Earthquake, Gunk Shot, Bullet Punch, all of those could be really, really good. Ignoring abilities tends to be pretty decent in some situations. And then Dark Fighting gives me more coverage against Ghost types, Dark types, for my defensive cores, and then it gets a decent Fairy coverage. I'm not going to rely too much on it, but, opposing Fairy types sitting at, like, half health, I might be able to deal with it at that point. All in all, I'm happy I got Pangoro again. I was going to do Scrafty for something different, but I'm glad that Cujo gets another run through to potentially be the MVP a second time. Moving forward, I'm starting to run low on points at this point, and I wasn't sure how to finish out the rest of my draft. I wanted another bulky Pokemon, something that I could run as like another wall, maybe with Will-O-Wisp, but with better type coverage than Mew. For that role, I decided on Weezing, also known as Rabies. I used to run this thing a lot in NU. I like it a lot. Between Levitate, letting you dodge ground hits, good fire coverage, Will-O-Wisp, Pain Split, Destiny Bond, fire coverage, Haze, Taunt, even Toxic Spike, so I can start whittling teams down, I think is really, really solid. This thing is also another Fairy check, another Grass check, which my team could struggle with if I'm not careful. And if I wanted to be that guy, Neutralizing Gas exists, so it's another pseudo Mold Breaker. I think I'm pretty happy with picking up Weezing, especially this late in the draft. I was considering Galarian Weezing at some point during the draft, but someone else took it, and I figured, it's too expensive anyway. So, yeah, Rabies has returned. And for the final pick, I didn't expect this one to be immediately impactful as it was, but in my Week 1 game, which, this is a little late. I played my Week 1 game already, but I'll upload that later with some commentary. Um, Wheezing, or not Wheezing, sorry, my last pick, actually is tied for KD with my dedicated, Toxtricity, my dedicated special attacking sweeper thing. So I was pleasantly surprised by that, but I am excited to use this Pokemon. And it was the exact perfect amount of points I needed for the solid 100 to finish out the draft with. So I decided to go with Shiinotic, the magic mushroom himself. And this Pokemon may not be super great. Grass Fairy is obviously 4 times weak to poison. It's not super great defensively in terms of typing, but it makes up for that, I think, with both its decent bulk. 60 HP isn't great, but 100 special defense, I'll take it for a low tier. Uh, it's not bad. Effect Spore isn't the greatest ability ever, but I mean, it had some shenanigans in this week. I wasted a turn clicking Spore anyway on the turn where I got hit and Effect Spore procced, but I guess I didn't really lose or paralysis. Both of those probably lost me the game, but more. Aside from Effect Spore, it's got strength, really good. It's Pokemon that does. It's got Light Screen, Thunder Wave. I know it gets Thunder Wave and Stun Spore. I don't get it, but T Wave is probably better most of the time than Stun Spore, so I'll take it. And it can even set Rain or Sun if I need it to. So all in all, uh, for a low tier, I'll take it. And I mean, hey, Black always hits decently hard, so excited. I really am. I'm really excited to see if I can make this guy work and maybe make him the MVP this season. Who knows? Low tier power and all that. But anyway, I think this draft went relatively well for me. I had a decent seat, basically a wheel pick. Um, what I lacked last season in variety, I made up tenfold this season. Um, Obviously, I'm not very fast. My fastest thing is Mew, and I'm not going to be running Mew most of the time. Maybe some of the time. I don't want to give too much away, but I don't think Mew is best suited for being a fast sweeper most of the time. So things will be very interesting to see if that matters. Obviously, I do have Trick Room available to me, but that's very situational. So we will see. But all in all, what I what I lack in speed, I think I make up for with variety and with just Pokemon that aren't going to be railroaded. They can hit hard, but also be hit hard. And I think this season might look up for me. So with that, I am going to leave it here. Thank you, everybody, so much for watching. And good luck this season. I'm really excited. I can't wait.